Welcome, everyone, to the Feminine Outliers podcast, your dose of fun, life advice, and experiences from two African professional women living and working in the Western world. We are your hosts, Cholwe Mandona
and Zelda Wasau.
And we are excited to have you here. So, for this week, I am really excited for this episode, and because it's about us. Well, technically not us per se, but us being women living in the current society of our time. And we are going to be talking about the rise of the modern woman. And maybe I want to say the rise of the woman because I don't know if it has to specifically be modern, but I guess we're just sort of coming from our experiences. And so I am really excited to delve into this topic. Yeah, and let's just see what we come up with. And I'm curious to hear Zel's take on this. But before we get into this, we have unlearning pieces for you. So I will start with Zell. What are you unlearning this week?
So I am unlearning assuming that people will not assuming, but kind of gauging people based off what I would do or what I wouldn't do, or kind of assuming that someone would do the exact same thing I do in a certain situation. Um,
Mm,
just because I do something like this or I think about something like that. And that's how I kind of gauge people, or like that's a standard I hold up to people because that's a standard I hold up to myself. I have to realize that that
mm,
is not necessarily the standard that other people will follow, and I shouldn't get disappointed if it's not, um, because ideally different people have, I mean, again, it's same, we're all different, raised differently, different backgrounds, different everything, so that might affect, even your personality would affect the certain standards you have for certain things. So certain
mm,
things I'm just like, why would someone do that? Or why would they think that? Or I would never do this or that in this situation. But I mean, maybe they have a reason of thinking that, and I shouldn't necessarily like be like, oh my goodness, why do they do that? Because it also makes it harder on me if I assume that, because in my head I'm like, I assume like ill mannerisms, or I assume they don't have the best of intentions, because if I did that myself, I would probably not be having
mm-hmm,
the best of intentions. But it doesn't mean that that's how someone else perceives it or is actually doing it. They might
mm,
have a totally different reasoning to why they're doing what they're doing. So, and I think the most important thing is in such a situation, if you're not certain about something, it's best to just clarify it, or and figure out where the person is coming from instead of just assuming things. Because I said this on one of my on the Please Stop Doing That episode, which you guys should go and watch, and not watch, listen to.
mm-hmm.
um
Listen.
but I said one of my pet peeves is when people assume things, and
Mm-hmm.
I did also mention that I do it sometimes, and this is an example of me doing it and catching myself doing it, because yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, I do remember you talking about it on the previous episode. And actually, you can watch it, but without any video on YouTube. So just mark it in the YouTube.
True.
Yeah, so um yeah, no, that is a good one. I have to keep reminding myself that my reality is my own, and it took me a while to really realize this.
Hmm.
And because it just felt like, well, whatever I'm seeing, the next person is seeing. Um, and I've come not to like this phrase, or rather to dislike this phrase, when someone is explaining something to you and they say, "Oh, it's really simple. Just do this and this."
Mm-mm.
Well, it's like, you've already defined it for me. You've already made the assumption that it's simple. And when if I do what you're doing and I still don't get it, then I feel that I'm less intelligent, because it should have been simple. So I don't like it when people start sentences like that, because they really are imposing that you will get it. And maybe it's coming from a good place, like, don't worry, you will get it. But it's making an assumption there. um so there has to, there's a better way. You can just say, well, okay, the way you do this, and then gauge from the way the person responds to see if they actually understand what you've just taught them. um and I agree with you, communication is key. um
I mean, communication is key, but like people fail at doing it all the time.
yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's uh, it's easier said than done. I get it, but
Yeah, and the thing about the assumption too, making these assumptions, I feel like it's done more around loved ones, or when people have expectations like, oh, because this person is my friend, they'll understand, or they just don't think that people that are close to them need to be communicated to. But we all live um different experiences. Because I find it really amazing how, when I talk to my siblings, like my sister, for example, and the way she describes her experience growing up is totally different from mine. And I was like, wait, but we were living in the same house and we ate the same food at the dinner table. How is it that you saw our upbringing a little bit different from us? So it's just amazing. So that from there, I'm just realizing, yes, you should just not make assumptions.
mhm,
Um. So yeah. Okay. Um. On my end,
mhm,
I am unlearning, mm, not rushing. I feel like I've talked about this unlearning. Um. But I feel like it just keeps coming in my life.
mhm,
Um. In a way where I'm like, I was a little bit complacent actually this week, um, about it. So I am a huge fan of strength training. Shout out to all the strength trainers. Um, and I just, yeah, I love the weights. It's super fun. And I've just generally seen better health for myself, um, and just a consistency in my fitness, which is amazing, which is great. Um, Unfortunately, I fell sick, um, and I was out of the gym for about a week and a half. Which, if anyone does a lot of weight training, it a week and a half is a long time to be out of the gym. I believe they say that you start losing muscle mass after 72 hours. So it's that thing, but obviously it's not drastic, but there's just that thing, and you also lose sight of your schedule. But anyway, I got better. I got better, thank God. Literally, thank God. And went back into the gym. Now, my excitement took over, and I was doing a deadlift. I was doing my deadlifts, which, really, I know how to do deadlifts. I understand it, but I was super excited that when I was doing one of my repetitions, I lost my form. So I wasn't, I, the barbell basically went away from me. And in that way, I strained my lower, and I strained my lower back. And I was rushing. And out of the excitement of getting back to the gym, I was rushing, and that was not great. And I rushed, and it didn't produce the result that I wanted. And it just made me think of other times in my life where I've rushed on things and they just don't work out. Um, and so this was just a reminder that rushing, I don't know if it serves a purpose. Uh, from the way I see it, I don't think it does. Um, and it's just that's my unlearning again, to like take my time, be patient, slow down. And also, I believe that taking your time is a part of mastery. Um, because now, because of my experience, now every time I go to the gym and do my weight training, I really make sure that every repetition is on point for me to continue doing this for a very long time. So that's my unlearning.
You know, when you said that your unlearning was to not rush, I was like, huh? I was like, really? Because this is coming from us talking about you being late to something sometimes. And then you're saying don't rush, but I'm like, but you do that if you're late. So I was really confused. I was like, where is there not rushing coming
Oh,
from? But then
yeah.
now when you're saying this, I think what I get out of it is that I think you have to know when it's time to rush and when it's time to take your time. There's time for both of them. And having the wisdom to know when it's important to take your time doing something is important. Like you said, weight training, taking your time, getting your form right is important. There are going to be other things in life that you have to take your time to execute whatever you're doing properly. So I think
Mm,
what I've gained from what you're saying is because from how I initially took it, because I was a bit confused, I was like, huh? And then now hearing your story, I realize it's just really knowing when is the right time to rush, when it's not the right time to rush. What things do I need to rush on? Because there's certain things you need to be quick and do quickly, but then there are other
mm,
things in which you don't have to. So having the wisdom to know what to do and when's the right time to do it is important. But it's also just encouraging to do in life, like, but in general in life, just where are you rushing to? I mean, you do need to have a sense of urgency. I'm not gonna lie, because it'll help you get through some things in life, but also just stepping back and enjoying the moment will help you
mm,
kind of see things that you may not have otherwise seen because you've taken a step
mm,
back and you can see the
mm,
bigger picture versus when you're just going really fast, you might not be able to take it all in, and you might miss
mm.
some certain things that might help propel you forward.
Correct. Okay, well summarized. I feel like sometimes I go on this like rants, like in my mind when I'm giving my learning. It's like I'm just going and going. And so it's like, wait, I thought we were turning left. Why are we going right? Like, I'm so confused. Like, where are we going? So you nicely
It's okay,
summarized.
Troy. I go with you with the left and to the right. I'll be up there.
Oh, thank you. Oh man. As long as we land safely, right? Like it's always about the good landing. So that's what matters. We arrived, you got the point, and thank you for summarizing it for our audience because they might have been like, huh? Okay. Um, but
But
no.
it was a very valid point. I'm sure someone who weight trains out there will be like, yes.
Yes, don't because it's serious. It's serious business. And that's why I love weight training because it's a discipline. So Yeah. Good stuff. Good learnings there. On to our topic of the week. Um, the rise of the modern woman or the rise of the woman. Um, I want to say, not that it has a direct connection, but we did
Mm-hmm.
um, a previous episode on the problem of patriarchy. Um, but this is a little bit different. It has the same, maybe, it has some alignment, but not directly. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, there's a lot that's happening in today's society. Um, I mean, the US now has its first female presidential nominee. That's Kamala Harris. That's pretty exciting. And I just
Second,
thought, second?
Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, you're right. You're right. Um, you're right. But it's just an exciting time to be a woman in today's time in 2024,
Mm-hmm.
because the number of women that are now going to college, for example, has gone up. The number of women that are, making their own money, getting jobs, women taking on leadership roles, um, it's just on a rise. The number of women that are own businesses, and are in the entrepreneurship space, that is just, it's growing. Um, and personally, I want to say, I'm very grateful to be in the position that I'm in, where I am a professional engineer, and Zell, you are a medical doctor, and we're in a space where we can contribute to society. We're making use of our skills, our talents, our education, and putting ourselves out there. Um, and I think that's pretty cool to see. Um, and the thing is that the things that we're doing and the way the world is shifting, means that there are cultural implications um, around this, and I think it would be interesting to sort of discuss, what does that mean for society moving forward, like the way that we interact in the world. um, I can give one example for myself, um, because we're now in a position to make our own money. I know that historically that wasn't always the case, at least from a traditional standpoint. Um, Women relied on being in a marriage union to acquire, you know, money. But now we're able to make our own money. So I've come to realize that because of that, I am put in a position where I need to learn how to use my money well. What does it mean to make money? What does it mean to save it, to invest it, to spend it? And that's something that wasn't just naturally passed down to me, at least for myself. I didn't learn growing up how to invest my money, or what the options were, and just how the world works from an economic standpoint. So that is one thing. But yeah, Zell, as you hear about what I'm talking about, is there something that comes to your mind about the shifts that are happening in today's society because of the position that women are now taking?
So my viewpoint is slightly, I mean, the things that I noticed is slightly different from the what you have noticed. I mean,
Mm,
granted, I did not learn, how to invest money and stuff like that. But that's a whole other topic in which we know that a lot of, as Africans, we grow up not necessarily learning as much about investing money. But
Mm.
as a girl, I could say, growing up, I never felt like per se that I could not do anything.
Mm.
I think my parents did an excellent job in that department, because they were very much like, you can be whoever you want to be, you can do what you want to do. Um, you being a female has nothing to do with it.
Mm.
So obviously, what I wanted to do was kind of limited to what I was exposed to based off, living with my parents and all that stuff. But I never
Mhm.
felt like it's something I couldn't do. It's
Mm.
when I started coming to the rest of the world and I started to see some of the limitations that some women came with. And in
Mm.
my head, I'm like, huh? Really? Like, why do
Mm.
you think like that? Why is that a thing? And for me, the annoying thing is how the modernized woman has been kind of made to be seen like less womanly or less
Mm.
feminine than like they are. It's like when you think about
Mm.
modern woman, you have to also think about femininity and feminism. And it's kind of
Mhm.
seemed like, oh, the modern woman is successful, earning, can earn her own money, can get her own house, can take care of herself, and all this stuff was not available way, way, way in the past. Women had to
Mm.
fight for their rights and stuff, and so it
Mhm.
comes a kind of a thing of, it's as if a woman is taking on masculine energy to a modernized woman seems to be taking on masculine energy. Well, that's what how the world makes it seem. And I'm like, no. I mean, again, you know me. I'm the kind of person who's like,
Mhm.
why can't I have my cake and eat it? Why can't it all just
Yeah.
work? I hate it when I'm pigeonholed into options. And I'm like, no, but you can be a modernized woman, be a boss babe, be a CEO, be working out, have a family, have kids, but you still a feminine, you're still soft, you're still, whatever it means to be a woman, you're still that. You still could be, the nurturer or whatever is like deemed as the typical qualities of a woman. You can do all that.
Mm.
Society has just made it seem that you can't do it, and society has also made it harder for that to be done, because it is true with certain aspects, like being a CEO, you might have to tap into a little bit of masculine energy because you're dealing with men
Mhm.
who are
Mm.
not used to having a woman um,
Mhm.
take the lead.
Yeah.
Society has indeed played a role into that, but that's what I think about, and it just annoys me because, like, I grew up not thinking it's an issue. And then I also was lucky enough to go to schools and in general interact with it, things not being an issue. The only issue, there were some things I started being exposed to, like when it comes to inheritance, only going to the guys, or the guys getting more than the women. I've seen that growing up.
Mm.
And things like that, that I'm just like, what? Why? So I started to pick up on things as I grew older.
Mhm. Mm.
But it
Yeah.
just, the whole thing of why does society pigeonhole us into certain ways, like if you considered a modern successful woman, that's the thing that comes to my mind. Yeah.
Mm. No, that's a very good point. And I think what I have seen with that is there's a division. I don't know if it's a growing division, but I see where some people are pro tradition, where they're like, well, um the way women were before they, started having money or status is better. And then there are some people that are pro women moving forward, which is, and there's a bit of like, maybe one is better than the other, as you said, because it's like, um it's just a polarity. Like it's it's this as you said, it's the idea that if you're going to take on a let's say leadership role, then you can't be feminine. um and I think even people are getting confused, as in, for example, like, if I'm going to take on a leadership role, or if I'm in a leadership role, can a man still open the door for me? And I think people are getting confused because they're like, well, okay, she can open the door for herself. Should I open the door? Should you open the door? Like, who's opening the door? Like, what's going on here? I'm seeing a bit of confusion there. Um, and it's also, um going into extrapolating into people's family life, into relationships, how people are deciding on partners and things like that. And there's just this shift that I don't know if society knows how they want to handle all of it.
Mm.
And that, and so that's what I have seen with this, because it's just confusing messaging. um like, but as you said, I think what you're saying is that a woman is still a woman. She's just taking on these other opportunities that she didn't have in the past, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change that she is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
um and I feel like some people have taken it to the extreme, to the other side of things. um and I also don't know. I think my question on this is, I don't know how well women are also dealing with their new change. Like, are we happy, ladies? In this new environment, and how are we feeling about it? And yeah, if we're made to feel bad because we are taking on these new roles in our life.
I think that depends. I think it depends on how you grew up, what you grew up believing, and all that. Because,
Mm,
you know, in as much as, okay, I do believe that a huge problem we have in society in regards to the modern woman is actually the men at the top who make decisions and ruin things for women because they're not women themselves, but they assume they know what women want. But there's also the aspect of us as women ourselves just sabotaging ourselves or being
mm,
like our own worst enemies. And that whole thing that you just said just depends on how you grew up. Like if you grew up in a traditional home and that's
mm,
what you've seen and that's what you're used to, you may be more inclined to stick to a traditional man be more traditional in your future relationships because that's what you grew up with, that's what you're used to.
mm-hmm,
If you grew up in a traditional home and it was toxic, then you might be inclined to go complete opposite route because you had a bad experience. And the
mm,
same could be for vice versa. If you grew up in a modern home, in a place where women are, you know, you had a good example of a modern woman, like a modern mom and stuff, and it was great, and you saw the benefits, you might be exact same way. But then if you saw it, if it was toxic in a certain way, you might decide to, oh no, I'm going to lean more towards traditionalism. I think it just depends on exact like how you grew up and your environment, and also now your current environment as an adult. Because obviously it can change. Like you can
mm,
go from being really traditional and then you come up here and you see, oh wait, there's actually different ways to do stuff. It also depends on your personality, what you enjoy doing. Because like for me personally, when I think about living in the past, OMG, I'd be hashtag miserable. Like all the
yeah.
things, like the restrictions put on women, I'd be
Mm,
miserable. Like, because knowing how wide my interests are, oh, that would be horrible. So I'm a kind
Mm,
of person who I feel like I would not lean towards traditionalism, but someone else who, if their interests are more in line with traditionalism, and that's just who they are, might prefer it more.
mhm,
So I think it's like it's a hard question to answer because there's multiple factors that play a role into that.
mhm. Yeah. No, that's a
I'm not
yeah,
sure if I
that's
went off track.
no, no, you did. No, 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 you did not go off track. As you said, it's a really you can't really give a definitive answer on it. Um, yeah, and just what you're talking about with tradition versus modern, there's definitely that, and I've seen just even like on social media how, like I, for example, I saw something on Instagram, and this lady was, she got back from work, and she was cooking for her spouse, and apparently she got comments where, people were saying, why are you cooking for your spouse? You also work just as much as he does. I'm not sure if that was the case for this lady, but yeah, people were saying he could, you know he can also cook, or something like that. So it was just interesting that for her, she felt comfortable, and she felt okay to cook for her husband after she gets home. But a lot of people were coming after her and saying he can do his own cooking or something like that. And so so that's why I'm saying there's just this polarity that's out there where it's like, she's a modern woman making money, and the husband is probably, maybe I want to assume, doing the same, but she is, taking on that role of feeding her family, and she's fine with it. To her, she's fine with it. And I know some people might look at that and be like, no, I'm not fine with it. Like, so, there's just, and I think this is what I'm seeing in this sort of like, what are our new roles, seeing that we can actually both do the same kind of job, or jobs. um so now it almost feels like it's calling us to respect each other. We're not equal per se, because there's, like, men and women, but we have to somehow appreciate each other, and I think that's what it's calling for. And it's very interesting, I would say.
It is interesting. Yeah, it's. I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like- I was going to say something and I totally blanked out.
Was it about the
So,
example I gave with the woman being a, um
oh,
she's
I think I was going to say, you can be a mix of like modern and traditional. Like
mm,
you could be modern in certain ways, traditional in certain ways, and it's fine. Like the problem is just again, society pigeonholes you or tries to pigeonhole you into one or the other. Um,
mhm,
and particularly for the modern woman, I just feel like I feel like the people who have the biggest issue with it are people who are insecure, particularly
mm,
insecure males. They're the ones who have the issue with the modernized woman because the woman in the past really catered for the man in a lot of different ways. And as the man, you really were the head, you made a lot of the decisions because the woman was dependent on you. When you
mm,
remove that variable and you can see the woman, let's say we're talking about a modern woman who's fully independent and standing on her own.
mm,
As a man, you also have to be fully independent and standing on your own. One.
mm,
And then two, you also have to be confident in who you are, that you know that you're worth it without having a woman depend on you, because some men just want to feel wanted or needed.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I feel like that's a big like enemy of progress to the modern woman when you deal with a insecure man that is, just doesn't realize their self-worth without the woman, because that's part of the reason why society, which in general is very patriarchal all over the
Mm.
world, is pushing back against the modernized woman, because men were always in this advantageous position, and
Mhm.
women were kind of in the past certainly treated as second class citizens.
Mm.
um, and they were always in the more disadvantaged position. And so now, when you're
Mhm.
coming from a being an advantage position, and you're being told, you have to consider, um, you have to consider actually being more on equal terms
Mhm.
with the opposite sex. I can see why some of them would give it pushback, because it's like, really, I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. It's very hard to share power once you've had a taste of it, to be fair. And you can take that in so many contexts. Because you, as you said, you kind of have to say, okay, we are now on equal footing. Um, and the thing that comes to my mind as you were saying that is, then you know how, like, in the women were raised in such a way. I know I can speak for, like, maybe the African context, that women were raised to get ready for marriage, or like it was such a big part or of their upbringing. Like, okay, we're gonna raise you to a point where you should get married, or even if there wasn't any formal, like some formal education or training. It's just the comments that parents would make to their kids to say, like, for example, like, if you, I don't know, talk too much, or you didn't dress in a presentable way, like, parents would make comments and say, how are you going to get married like that? What, how are you? And now I'm wondering if that education, that training also now has to be done to the male child, because
100%.
100%. Yeah. So it's like, yep, yes, definitely. Because now people are, I want to make the assumption that things are going to change, where people are not going to get into partnerships, where the original structure was based on, um, where maybe the man held more quote unquote power than the woman. But if we're going to be on equal footing, then it means both, man and women. And I guess this is, specifically in heterosexual relationships. So in that situation, it looks like then the man also has to have the training and the education to be ready to be with another human being. And I'm
Yeah, it's
sure,
possible.
yeah.
It depends on upbringing, because
Mm.
if you're raised and you're a boy, and you're raised and you're taught to treat women as equals, you do the same chores your sisters do in the house, like you're brought up the same way. Obviously, there's certain nuances that are different between girls and boys, but in general, like, you are raised to, like your sisters do clean the house, you also clean the house. Your sisters have a day for cooking, you also have a day for cooking. You're not exempt because you're a guy. I feel like if you're raised like that from the beginning, then those are the men who are more accepting to the modern woman,
Mm.
because that's how they were raised. They were raised seeing, but if you're raised being, you're the boy child, so you don't have to do any house chores, you don't have to cook, you don't have to do that. They'll grow up and they want to know how to take care of themselves. They will know how to cook and clean. So whoever they get married is going to have to be the one who takes on that task. And then, yeah, so that's when things starts from when you're being brought up. And women are part of the problem because as a woman,
Mm,
you tell your son, "Oh no, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that," and then that's going to become a problem in the future with if he ever gets in a relationship with a modern woman
mm,
because so women are definitely part of the problem. It's ironic, but we
mm,
are part of the problem with the modernized woman fiasco. We are
mm,
championing it, but at the same time, we are our own worst critics, and we are bringing ourselves down at the same time.
mm. Yeah, you reminded me of the phrase, "Let boys be boys."
Oh, I hate
Like,
that phrase. Like,
oh,
no,
yeah.
no.
Ah. Yeah, because it carries that connotation of, yes, we're going to um train the girl child, but boys, let them just be. That's how they are. Um, yeah, and it's yeah, yeah. I don't even know what else to say to that. Um, but yeah, no, there there's definitely going to be um and even just the general acceptance, um because obviously we're in a transition period where, I remember when in the previous episode we talked about how, um when women portray what are regarded as masculine traits, they're not perceived the same way. It doesn't translate in the same way, as when men do it. um and it's just something that it almost requires this high sense of self if you're a woman to just keep going your lane and just really doing what you need to do.
Hmm.
um because there's it's one thing to say, okay, should I back down and sort of try and fit in so that, the criticism is less, the judgment is less, or should I stick my head out and face what I need to face, um and just keep going, presenting myself and, just being the person that I am. um and yeah, and just, yeah, just wait, not waiting, but pretty much just not being shy and less confident to just be yourself. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, so anything else that you wanted to add to this topic that you have
Mm.
observed?
No, I just feel like I still keep on going back to you could be more like you don't have to take on masculine traits to be a modernized woman. But I understand like how society is pushing women to do that. Um, but because I always just think about in my head, what I was thinking about was like female surgeons,
Mm,
um, and how you have to be in such a male dominated field. It's like, but it's like you really have to take on those masculine traits. But I really feel like there's a beauty and there's a strength in just being feminine, your feminine self, but being like,
Mm.
I'm still getting the job done.
Mhm.
And I'm potentially getting it done better than you.
Yeah.
So without having to take on another personality or something. But that also takes a certain level of confidence and, as you
Yeah.
said, and like self-assurance, um and self-awareness on your part as a modern woman.
Mhm.
You have to be, I know who I am, this is what I stand for, done, in the face of criticism, because again, people will try and put you in boxes, which is a very human thing. It's easier to handle someone when you put them in a box that you think they belong in, and you have to kind of fight to get out of that box.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that's the plight of the modern woman.
Yeah. No, that's very that's a good summary. I was just thinking about how um I don't and I've seen some women do this, but I don't know if it's me. I don't see in my own circle, so I'm it might be limited. I don't see a lot of adult women wearing pink, for example. So is somewhere do we just lose a sense of our personality? That's only if girls growing up like pink. I'm not talking about I didn't like pink growing
Hashtag
up. So
disclaimer, disclaimer.
yes, hashtag disclaimer. I did not like pink growing up. I didn't even understand why I had to wear pink if pink was a thing at the time. So, but for like just because just from what you were saying, there's this maybe there's an aspect where we lose ourselves because we're supposed to look a particular way. So I'm in some way we sort of follow a masculine trend. If you liked pink, do you continue wearing pink as an adult woman?
Mm.
And I'm wondering if I see a lot of that. Um, Women express themselves in their professional world, in what they do, because I can see how that might be. It seems maybe natural for people in the creative spaces, but in
Mm-hmm.
like in our professions, I mean, if you showed up all dressed in pink, I mean, I'm sure it will be fine, but maybe it also depends on how you present yourself to be taken professionally, if you
I
know what
don't know
I'm
how
saying.
it would look for you. For us, they are pink scrubs. And if
Oh,
you're wearing
cute.
scrubs, I mean, you're wearing scrubs. And I have some of my friends who wear pink scrubs, and it's fine. Or remember that time when I came to the UK, my nails were pink, fully pink. Remember?
Oh, yeah,
And I went to
yes, yeah.
work with those bright ass pink nails.
That's great.
Like I do that all the time. I go with my nails, like when I do my stick-ons, and like my last ones were like red with like love hearts and Valentine stuff. And
Mm.
I wore them to work, and they were long ones. I I just wear that now. So I have seen um people in my life who do that,
Mm.
but I do know it's harder and it's rarer because you have to give a certain image, you know, at work or something like that. So I can see like doctors getting away with it better by wearing scrubs. Because if you're wearing
Mm.
scrubs, you're just pink scrubs. But I don't know how it would be for you as an engineer when you go in like your office clothes, all pink. That's more standout than pink scrubs. Like, even if it's the same color of pink, if
Yeah,
it's both they're both baby pink or bright pink. You see
yeah,
someone wearing scrubs, you'll be like, okay, it's scrubs. But then you're wearing like a
yeah,
suit that's pink.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
don't know how that would go.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, I see. So maybe at this, yeah, you're right. It's doable. Like you can, but it's definitely gonna be a stand. It's gonna be a definitely would be standing out rather, um, if I did something like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, but it's going to show. I think just from what you were saying though, the point that I was trying to make with that is expressing who we truly are.
Mhm.
Um, because I think what happens is that what has happened is that we get into adulthood and we want to do our jobs and and do what we can, but then it seems like it comes with potentially morphing, I mean, sorry, assimilating into the culture. So but I'm very hopeful that over time, with more women in the workforce, we get to actually just create our own identities and just be like, I'm sure at some point it should be so normal when when a woman says I'm a doctor or an engineer, people shouldn't look like wow. It should just be like, okay, that's what you wanted to do, so all the best, you know. So maybe
Mhm.
when we get to that point, expression of self is going to be just intuitive and easier, and
Mhm.
someone coming in a pink suit is just like, okay, that's how they identify themselves. So
Mhm. One day.
one day, one step at a time. Okay. No, this was fun. Um this was good. Something I think worth talking about. And yeah, very exciting times to be alive. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if this is content that you liked, please like us and subscribe to us for the next episode. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the audio version, obviously, the audio version of our podcast. We're yet to start posting or recording ourselves or recording videos. So stay tuned as we continue to grow this podcast. And if you have any feedback for us, what do you guys think about the um, the state of being a woman in today's world in 2024? We would love to hear that. You can leave a comment on Spotify. You can write to us at the feminine outliers at gmail.com. Just let us know what you like about this podcast, or just give us your feedback. So, until next time, have fun, live large, and don't be afraid to be an outlier.